Hey everyone, Logan Skis here. So in today's video, I'm going to be documenting some of the lessons I've learned in the last 2 years of research and development in visual collaboration. And specifically, we're going to take a look at how visual collaboration in a business context, something that we could see that looks a little bit like this, how that can leverage best practices from military terrain models and real-time strategy games. So a lot of the time when we're working on a new project, when we're building a startup, things can be very chaotic, right? And it can feel like you're in a tesseract of sorts. This is from one of my favorite movies, which is Interstellar, right? It's just infinite dimensions, rabbit holes going on for all eternity. It's like a fractal. So it's another great visual reference here. It's the mirror dimension from Doctor Strange, right? This can kind of be what it feels like sometimes to manage all of the assets and files and documents and things like that in a project. The whole world is spinning. Business and managing problem solution or product market fit can be chaotic and challenging enough without the internal infrastructure of the business being chaotic. So what we really want to achieve is something more like this. Imagine this guy's feeling, right? Something a bit more zen, I think. And that's really what I've been looking for myself, seeking out for my own work. And in the last 2 years, I've been studying a couple fields with a colleague, Mr. Jack Hickler, out of a small passion project, a think tank. And we've been really focused in 3 key areas, I would say. And I'm going to cover some of those 3 areas here. The purpose of this video is to share some of my journey, to catalog a little bit of the origin story, but more than just a narrative framework that captures the highlights. I'm actually going to show you in depth what I've built, what we've put together, and the overall framework that we call the venture map now. More than that, I'm actually going to use this series of cataloging my journey on YouTube and LinkedIn to actually build out an entire venture map. And then for anyone who's interested in this approach of leveraging visual technologies like Miro, which is what we're using, and representing your assets in a really visual way, I'm actually going to just give any of you guys your own venture map. So I'll give you your own template. I'll go above and beyond, and I'll actually even help you set it up. So if you want a strategy session to connect, implement your own venture map, I'll connect with you via Zoom. I'll get you all set up and off to the races, even give you an implementation plan on how to get started. You can also watch these YouTube videos, etc., etc. All right, let's dive into this thing. So my name is Logan Skis, if you don't already know, and I'm a Marine veteran. I served in the Corps for 4 years, 2 deployments to Afghanistan, had the privilege of serving in the infantry as a rifleman. Part of my experience, as I listed off in my first video, is something like this. So we had terrain models in the Marine Corps. They can be varying formats, right? You see these guys are using boxes and tape. These guys are using dirt, right? This is a cool concept image of a holographic one. This is one for my Army bubbas out there, right? Using actual mounds and all of this good stuff. So terrain models have been used since really the dawn of time. And it's not just terrain models, it's really visual collaboration. I love this image right here, right? It's visual collaboration. And it's a way that humans tell stories and we share information as we do it visually. The issue is, as great as Google Docs and Gmail and Excel spreadsheets and Asana and Slack and Monday.com, as great as those can be, they're missing something still. And what I know is from when you're with a bunch of people and you're planning a strategy and you're getting ready to implement, you want to align everyone's mental models in a common objective, a common ideal. And that's what a lot of industries have done in decades and years past. I feel like we're standing on the shoulders of giants in many ways, because if you look at the industry of service design, they've got great tools that accomplish some of these kind of organizational mapping type of things. And you've got life cycle maps, and you've got empathy maps, and You've even got companies that will go across their entire wall mapping out processes, and you've got service blueprints. All right, if you've ever seen these kinds of things, it's a customer journey times 10. It's customer journey meets employee journey meets automations. And then you've even got stuff like business architecture, which we're going to dive into. In fact, I'm the furthest thing you're going to meet from an MBA or a formally trained entrepreneur. So my hope in this series is to actually conduct a deep dive into each of these domains and share what I learned with you to consolidate your learning curve and hopefully get you onto the venture map so I can see how you use it and we could learn together. Business architecture is a really cool industry. These guys have been running and gunning for many years. They've got excellent tools. But that being said, it does leave some to be desired, right? I mean, even the best tools and the best frameworks that can come out of this domain still leave a little bit of a disconnect at a human level, right? So what I said before is, how do we merge these sorts of things with high usability so it's approachable? You don't need to study for 30 years to understand it, right? How can we leverage the best of collaboration in the workplace? Hundreds of years of leadership and insights from the military, where these tools aren't there just arbitrarily, right? They're in place for a very specific reason, because it's a high stakes environment where lives are on the line. These tools are leveraged because they align teams and they maximize the effectiveness of strategies while they're implemented in an operational environment. But then how can we actually gamify the experience around a narrative, right? As business owners, we want to tell a story, a compelling vision that aligns our team and allows them to contribute their best work. So how can it be as usable as a game? And what we're working on, what we're thinking about, is a type of platform. This is a rough prototype. You can think of this as a macaroni noodle project or something like that. It's like construction paper and Elmer's glue. We're building this in Miro. But what you can think of this as, and what we view this as, is a very early stage prototype. And this is a broken up version of this, and we call it the venture map. And effectively, it's building off of our learnings from service design. So when we're talking about service design, there's a lot of different stuff that comes out of that industry. But one of basically the core components is time, and they'll use a service design blueprint to effectively represent a business across the axis of time from left to right. So I'll show you what an example of a Starbucks service blueprint looks like. And basically, right, it's kind of a left to right, a top to bottom kind of a deal, where you've got the customer doing something, and then you've got employees interfacing with that customer across the whole journey, but employees are also doing stuff away from the customer backstage. And then you also have sort of automations that are occurring, support processes, etc. That's kind of the gist of these service design blueprints. And these are great, right? Imagine being a business owner and you're able to see your whole customer journey with what they call physical evidence represented here, and all of your staff actions, all of that good stuff. But it's still flat, and we wanted more than that. So we worked for some time to build something that we could actually use as a workspace. So if we wanted to build a business model, we could come right in here and build out our canvas. If we wanted to conduct some market analysis, we could actually have that, and we could represent live data in here. So it's not as flat. But the thing is, it got so big over time that we said, this is just absolutely nuts how far this is growing. Let's see if we can chop it up a bit. And that's where we're at here. We've actually chopped it up, and we've got 3 components. So we basically view this top piece as inspired by a service design blueprint, starting with the inception point of our vision. Now I kind of go back and forth between vision and culture here, but at the end of the day, what we're really just going to talk about is we start with a vision. And between starting with team or plan, you really want to make sure that you've got the right team in place, and you've got the right the right culture, the right plan, I suppose you could say. Simon Sinek says you start with why. One of our very favorite things to do during this sort of stage is execute on our guiding principles, and we define the purpose, the team, our key team attributes, and get into some high-level overview on the actual terms, who's involved on the team, personality profiles, stuff like that. And we'll also do some traditional project planning. I'm going to do a breakdown on the actual plan, so I'll just kind of keep this video high level. I'll wrap it up here in a second, but service design only took us so far because it just didn't have enough depth to it. Where we also wanted to gain understanding was what they call the innovation strategy space, and that's, you'll see Alexander Osterwalder and Steve Blank and guys like that talking about, and Ash Maurya talking about innovation strategy. And you see Ash Maurya's lean canvas, and you see Strategyzer's value proposition canvas. You see stuff like that coming to life, and the way we like to represent that, I mean, you can, if you swim upstream from Strategyzer's and Steve Blank's sort of methodology, and even Russell Brunson's, I love the Dream 100 type of stuff. It takes you to sort of basically market analysis, market segmentation, customer profiling. So you kind of have to stretch a bit. You can even look before that. Maybe there's some brand identity kind of stuff, but really it comes down to the vision. So that's where we begin. We begin with the vision, and we say planning is a disciplined part of vision. It's nice to sit around the drum circle with kombucha and envision what could be, but the discipline component of visioning is truly project planning. So my next video is going to be actually kicking off project planning. I thought I should just do this quick insight into the origins, which is in business architecture, service design, and military terrain modeling. Let's see, before I kick it off, or I guess wrap us up here, I'll just share a little bit more of how we kind of got here. So before that big venture map kind of came to life, which is this crazy thing, we did a lot of development. This is our 9th version. We worked on this for quite some time. Here's venture map version 1. We're just trying to figure out this order of operations, right? You kind of develop your business model, then you kind of do media, push it to a funnel, then push it to fulfillment. And we wanted a way to see all of that and to work on all of that, to actually have our stuff living in a place that we could work on and build. So we kind of did other models like that to track our customer emotions, and we love Joey Coleman's framework for never lose a customer again and all the touch points. We genuinely wanted to be able to come in, zoom in, see our actual funnel, see every stage of our funnel, but then see more than that, like actually see the nurture sequence, see our lead gen PDF, see our traffic channels. We wanted to see it all, just like you would in a military operation, right? You would never expect to go on an assault on a village and only see half of the map. Right? In the best case scenario, you would want to see the entire map before stepping outside the wire. And that's a risk mitigation strategy. And we were disappointed with the lack of an ability to see all of that, even with the awesome project planning, business architecture, service design, innovation strategy, funnel design. All of these industries are great, but they just didn't seem to give us what we really were after, which is a full vision of the business. So we went from version 1, we iterated a lot, we took it to version 3, and we just kept kind of tweaking. We did a storyboard version of this to try to understand it a little better. But before we even did any of that, we were at a startup accelerator called Florida Atlantic University's Tech Runway. And internally, we were mapping out some of our own processes, and we had mentors in this cohort that we were in, and we were demonstrating some of the boards that we were organizing, and I'll maybe share one of those boards next time. They were definitely not as organized as this. And what it came down to is we basically said all of our internal processes need to get to a point that they're presentable. We want to be able to present all of our internal operating systems to stakeholders in a way that's compelling. and in a way that looks right. So we basically started building playbooks, is what we ended up calling it. And this is an example of one of our playbooks, our early playbooks, where we would put together a creative reference board. And as a Marine, I like to say that they're like intellectual obstacle courses. So every single step of our playbook is kind of ironed out, and it's repeatable. It's a process that makes sense. You could basically train your team on it. It's pretty thorough and detailed, and it basically will teach people what it is, take them through every single step of the equation. In this case, we're building out mood boards, we're building out creative reference boards, whatever it is, and it just gets the data we need for a startup in a way that's visually compelling, and it outputs a fixed deliverable. So we started operating on that, showed it to some fellow business owners that I've known from my years in the fitness industry. I've had the privilege of working with them as their trainer, and over the COVID lockdowns, I said, what are you doing? What's going on these days in your world? I said, well, I've been taking a lot of notes, and showed them these notes, and they said, hey, can I get a copy of these? So that's kind of really what catalyzed the growth. And we always anticipated there was going to be more to our business model than just these sort of process manuals. And for a long time, we were experimenting and trying to poke around and say, well, we know that there's such a thing as a business model, there's such a thing as a funnel and sales and fulfillment. How can we represent all of this? And how can we stay true to our vision of having a single map for the entire thing? And the recipe that we've landed on is effectively this, right? It's 3 key phases in time. It's pre-purchase, post-purchase, or pre-purchase, purchase, and post-purchase. Scott Galloway taught us that one. And then within that, we basically have our vision that feeds the strategy that feeds the marketing feeds the funnel to sales feeds onboarding. From there, we're working on familiarizing our users. From there, we're working on that promised delivery. In other words, we're working to transform them, take them from that current state to the desired state. And from there, we're working on advocacy. We can break it down a lot further than that. Ultimately, we think of the top row as a place to represent the physical evidence or deliverables. Showed you earlier, right? We can zoom in to any one of these. Let's find a good one here. Here's a simple one, our team board. There's my friend, Mr. Jack. You can find your actual deliverables here. So, for example, project planning asset. These are staged as we're moving them down now, but you can find your customer avatar profiles, right? Everything's staged. We're in this new form, and this is what I'll be breaking down in the video series here, is basically all of that. We're going to start with our planning, our cultural elements, our market analysis, business model, testing sequence. We'll leverage some sort of traditional consulting frameworks like the McKinsey 7S framework, and we'll develop our North Star. We'll get pretty detailed in all of this, and I'll reference all of the learning materials that we've gone through from StoryBrand, Strategyzer, and others. We're excited to go through this. I'm stoked to sort of document the journey, and we're going to start on this blank board. Back here, I've just got a few templates referencing the hero's journey, as well as you gotta love Joey Coleman and his Never Lose a Customer Again framework. So that's kind of baked into the DNA of this. Irreplaceable, as is Strategyzer, as is Ashmore Isley and Canvas, and Alexander Osterwalder's contributions, Don Miller's contributions from StoryBrand and the brand script, Simon Sinek from Starting With Why, etc. But we'll get into all of that. Ultimately, what I wanted to leave you with now is the general framework, which is time, and then actor or agent or who's involved. So across time, we'll have our physical evidence, our collateral. That's where it's staged. From there, we'll have the customer journey, every single action, emotion, and touch point with our customer across the whole journey. and every type of journey, right? We'll have multiple types of customer paths. Some of them will double back. Some of them have multiple sort of branched pathways, and we're going to explore how to reconcile that in the real world, how our front stage staff interacts with those customers, at what points in time, what our staff is going to do backstage, behind the scenes, at which points in time, then what support processes, what is MailChimp doing when, in other words, what is our social media content distribution platform doing when, how is that all working, so our processes. Then we'll basically get into the mapping out our internal operating procedures, our playbooks, like how do we train our employees to do stuff, in other words, and how do we mitigate ambiguity and uncertainty. And if I know anything from my time in the service, in a high stakes environment that's rapidly changing and extremely complex, and there's a lot on the line, in other words, you want to leave very little room for interpretation. So we're going to look at some methods we found to be quite effective at removing uncertainty, removing ambiguity, and being able to take teammates through processes. Well, we're going to train them, and they're going to be producing, including yourself, if you elect to pursue this type of opportunity, this type of method. You're going to be going through these intellectual obstacle courses, right? Here's just one for your value proposition. Here's another one for the desirability hypothesis, right? It's basically a training tool and a collateral production asset that's stored in a visual repository. And that's all staged in a monstrous behemoth map for your whole business. It's the digital ecosystem for your brand, in other words, and we're gonna break all that down. I think it's gonna be fun. So that's what's gonna basically be occurring here, is every single step. So the time of your business, from vision all the way through to advocacy, has processes, and we're gonna capture those processes. It's gonna be delineated clearly, and I'll even share them with you and share templates with you throughout the journey, so it'll accelerate your learning curve. And anything that comes up in the meantime, we're probably going to learn a lot, get a chance to talk with professionals, like actual experts. Each of these segments, each of these pillars are entire industries with professionals who spent decades mastering their craft. So we're going to hopefully connect with the resources, learning opportunities, and maybe even live conversations with people in each of these boxes who've developed incredible frameworks, and then learn how we can integrate that. That's the spirit of the venture map, is integration and visualization. We're going to learn to integrate and visualize that throughout the entire board. So that's a little bit of the pitch here, and deeper insight into service design, business architecture, and military terrain modeling, and how we can gamify that in a way that is visually compelling, unites the team around a standard, around a unified narrative, and ultimately mitigates against the chaos of a modern remote working environment, while leveraging best practice from project planning all the way through to customer retention. So that's pretty much all I've got for now. Ultimately, our objective here, and I think the journey we're going to go on, is how we can feel more peace of mind and more certainty in our small, medium-sized business development. As solopreneurs, as small teams in a rapidly changing world, we want to leverage every single advantage we can. And I believe some of these methods are an advantage, and hopefully you will too. If you liked anything that I had to say here, and you have your own opinions, just go ahead and let me know. Drop a note, shoot me a DM, but even better, get yourself a venture map. You can go ahead and take a template for yourself, and better yet, I'll even help you set your own venture map up. We'll do a strategy session. I'll give you an implementation plan, and at no cost, just because I'm curious to see what you'll do with it, and always interested to hear feedback from clients and from the audience at large. So thanks so much for watching this kind of longer video journal that's documenting some of the journey, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side.